Hello, hello, everybody. So good to see you here today, where we're going to talk all about how to make a full-time living from books. Got some people coming in here. Drop in the comment box where you're tuning in from and what your book is about. I'd love to read that. We're going to have like a nice little intimate group here for the live training. And so let me know where you're tuning in from and what you're writing about. I am from Austin, Texas. So that's where I'm from. Yes, it has been extremely hot here. But I'm going to kind of get right into the content. So we're live here and now. I'm super excited. And let's get to sharing some of this information about how to make a full-time living from books. So again, drop in the chat here why you're looking to go full-time. I think it's a good thing to remember. Let me see if I can make this a little bit easier to see. There we go. We have Heather from Houston writing a romance. That's awesome. Romance is actually a super popular genre that many people create a full-time living from. And I have it as an example in this presentation when we get down to the fiction section. So that'll be great. Yeah, I'll go ahead and get into it. So today I'm going to be talking about 3 ways nonfiction and fiction authors can double their income in under a year. Really, how actual authors are doing it in this day and age. I can't speak. It's been a long day. For those of you who don't know me or don't recognize me from our YouTube channel, my name is Bella Rose Pope, and books changed my life. And now I want to leverage my impact to help others write books to change lives. So I've been in marketing for 7 years, 4 of which at self-publishing school. And that includes organic growing website, which is like blog, site traffic, then social media and YouTube. And I'm also a fan of fiction and nonfiction. So some people like to choose a side. Some people can't stand reading nonfiction. Some people have never picked up a fiction book and read it voluntarily in their life. I read both voraciously. So that's why I'm here today. And then a lover of cheese. So I'm a byproduct of growing up in Wisconsin. Is anybody joining us here from Wisconsin? Shoot in the comments. So even if you're watching at a later date, I will comment back on here. Most of the comments, by the way, replied to are me on our YouTube channel. So fun fact for you there. And I just wanted to get started with a little bit of a disclaimer for you guys. So I teach quickly and I cover a lot. So teaching is kind of my thing. I'm the content manager here at Self Publishing School, and content really, when it comes to marketing, is just a nice way to say teacher, especially if you're doing it correctly, which we'll talk a little bit about in this presentation and then in future as well. So stay until the end and I will teach you how you could possibly get the slides to this and potentially the replay. So stick around for that. So the 3 lessons we're going to talk about today is all about lesson number 1 is going to be the book branch method. So this is really how to turn one nonfiction book into a multiple book income stream that allows you to sell more copies to a single author, right? So we're increasing your impact or your income that way. Lesson number 2 is called the Raving Fans Plan. So we're going to hook readers with an irresistible fiction box set that sells like crazy. I'm going to teach you the methods of how to actually do that. And lesson number 3 is going to be more for the business builders. So business builders blueprint in how to start and grow a business with lead generating fiction book. Is there anybody here who is writing nonfiction or business books? I see a few fiction in here. We've got Jonathan writing historical fiction, Aaron writing spiritual fantasy, very cool. And we have a romance author here. So let me know what you're writing in the chat and I'll kind of keep up with that as we go along. But first, I want to ask you guys a question and I want you to type this in the comments. And if you're not comfortable typing in the comments, write it down somewhere because I think this is so, so important and such an undervalued part when it comes to any big goal, but specifically one that can take as much as publishing a book and going full time with your books. What would it mean to wake up every day and make a living doing what you love? So what would that mean to you? Take a minute to answer that question. Does it mean that you have more freedom to build your day-to-day life how you want? Does it mean that you have the means to support your family on your own? What does it mean for you? Now write that in the comments and we'll move on. And I'll loop back around to some of those answers if you guys want to drop those in the comments for me to see. So first I want to talk about the power of books in 2022 and beyond. How many of you remember when this is what social media looked like? Right? MySpace is kind of ancient for some people here. Maybe some of you recognize MySpace. But how many of you remember when Instagram first came out and looked like this? And people had no idea what to post. They called it social media. We had no idea what to post. Because social media used to be about just being social. Back in the day, when it first came about, I don't know about you guys, but I had a MySpace and I was posting random stuff that sometimes didn't even make any sense on it. You know, just updating my life, reorganizing my friends when they were mad at me, to move people down for my best friends. Who remembers that? And Instagram was the same way, right? I was just posting pictures about my dogs and my food, and well, really, essentially, I still post about those things, but in a different way. Now, books used to be about just reading. So while social media used to be about just being social, books used to be about just reading. So we're going to talk about a little bit of a comparison when it comes to what we can actually use books for in this day and age. Because previously, in order to be a successful author, you really had to get a book deal. And not only did you have to get a book deal, but you had to have a great book that sold well. And that was kind of the only path. Now there are so many different things that you can do with books. So yes or no? Drop it in the comments. There are many roads to Rome when it comes to making a full-time income with books. I'm going to give you a little spoiler. Yes, there are many different methods that you can go about creating a full-time income as an author, but the truth of the matter is that authors rarely make a sustainable living by just writing one book and doing nothing else. So you might hear about some of those authors who get a six-figure first-time author book deal, traditionally publishing. But the more accurate truth is that people who get to live this full-time income, who get to wake up every day and do what they love, most of them are not doing it with just one book. Because this is what your author ecosystem, when we talk about this with our students here at Self-Publishing School, your author ecosystem, when you only have one book, might look like this, right? There's only one route for people to find you. They can only read one of your books, which means they're only paying you for only that book. So, right, you're making a set amount of money per book in a single book author ecosystem. Now, if you start writing multiple books, and this is where we're heading with this presentation, and I'm going to show you how to create the path toward many books in a way that fits for what you want to do with books. A healthy author ecosystem looks like many books, many different types of products, meaning box sets, and then other additional products outside of books. So that looks like the business builders who are now going to grow a coaching or a consulting business or even a product business based on their books. So this is the end goal. And once you have this author ecosystem, which we're going to have by the end of this presentation, you can plug it all into your book sales network. So this is another teaching that we use at Self-Publishing School in order to help our authors succeed, is creating a robust book sales network. Now, that's a little bit more advanced. So we're going to stick with the author ecosystem today and how you can use it as a nonfiction, fiction, and a business builder in order to make that happen using the book branch method, Raving Fans Plan, and the business builder's blueprint. So let's just get into the book branch method to start right away. So this is a strategy that I've come up with after studying many different successful authors, specifically people who are only creating an income based off writing multiple nonfiction books and selling them. So I reverse engineered what was working and came up with this method that I'm going to teach you, along with some examples so you can see how this plays out in the real world. So first thing first, in the book branch method, you're going to take a single book. So you're going to have your parent book and overall topic overview. So in this example, I'm going to use taking ownership of your life as one of them. So that is going to be your overall main concept for your first nonfiction book. What you're going to do from here is you're going to pull out the core topics within your book. So what we teach here at Self-Publishing School is when you go to mind map your book, you're actually going to pull out sections, and you're going to structure your book based on the sections that you identify in your mind map. Now, these can range anywhere from 2 to 6 to 8. We don't really suggest having too many more sections than that in your book. But for this example, we're going to have the core topics within this book are going to be about mindset, relationship, wellness, finances, your soul, and career. And in this example, these are the 6 different areas of your book, of your main book, that are going to teach people how to take ownership of their life based on those 6 areas, okay? From there, what you're actually going to do in order to start building your author ecosystem as a nonfiction author is you're going to write a single book about each of those sections. Now, this is not necessarily a rehash or copy and pasting what's in your main book. So if your main core topic is a book about taking ownership of your life, maybe you have a section about mindset that is a little bit not condensed, it's still valuable, but you have a lot more to give when it comes to mindset. So you're going to write an entire book on mindset. You're going to write an entire book about relationships, an entire book about wellness, finances, you get the idea. So now, based on this, not only do you have one book to sell in your author ecosystem, you actually have 7 books in total that all are pointing toward you as an author. So I'll get to an example of what this looks like a little bit later. Now, the next step for this book branch method is we are going to take that single book from your core topic. So we're going to look at your mindset book. We're going to say, okay, I've mind mapped this book. What are the 3 sections within this mindset book? Or negative thoughts, anxieties, and self-doubt. Okay, so I'm going to cover those 3 sections to teach people how to take ownership of their mindset. Now, what you actually have is another set of branched books. So when we're talking about a long-term plan to go full-time as a nonfiction author, what we're really talking about is creating your book writing plan, right? Because if you don't know where you're going or what you're writing next, you're not going to be able to create this author ecosystem that is buzzing, that is selling multiple books, that you're attracting multiple customers from. And I'll show you how that works in a minute as well. So from this mindset book that you have, now you have 3 more books. One that's all about negative thoughts, so you can go deeper into that topic. One all about anxieties, going deeper into that, and one about self-doubt. And all of these encompass your mindset as an author. So this is what that could look like. So now you have not 1, not 7, but now 10 books just by branching off of the mindset. And now a question I get a lot when we teach this method to our students is, do I have to write every single topic? And the answer is no. Now you might write this main book, but you might not actually be interested personally in going into too much depth when it comes to finances or career. Maybe you are really passionate about mindset. Maybe you're really passionate about relationships. You can pour more effort and prioritize getting those books out instead of writing whichever ones, whatever other ones, or writing all of them. So I want you guys to remember that this is also an option in order to write more books. So here's how the math ultimately breaks down when it comes to the book branch method. If you can continue branching as long as you want, you can stop branching at any certain point. Maybe you're somebody where you're perfectly fine with having that 7 books total, and you're not really interested in going deeper into any of those topics. That's perfectly fine too, especially if you want to then use the same method on a different type of book idea. So maybe you want to write not a book of taking ownership of your life. Maybe you do want to write a book about something completely different, and you can use the same method to keep writing more books on that topic. So don't feel like you're pigeonholed into only one topic and that's it in order to create a robust author ecosystem. But I do want to show you the power of this type of book branch method when it comes to nonfiction books and ultimately making a full-time income as an author. So now when you have all of these different books branched out, what you actually end up with is not only 18 or 25 books from one idea, but you also end up with 6 box sets for these books. So you can bundle the mindset book with all of the branched mindset books, negative thoughts, anxieties, and self-doubts, right? And you can sell that as a box set product at a higher price point because they're getting 4 books instead of 1. So now you're making a higher rate per book buyer or purchaser than you would if you only had the 1 book to sell somebody. So this is how you start building up your author ecosystem with single books and box sets. So you have a robust number of products to sell people. So let's take a look at what this looks like in action. Is this making sense to you guys so far? Where a lot of the plan when it comes to nonfiction books is not just about writing 1 book and selling it really well. It's about creating several books around a main topic that can serve a single person multiple times. And I'll show you what that looks like with this example right now. So this is the book branch method in action by our coach, Scott Allen. So Scott is one of our coaches here at Self-Publishing School. He started with one book in 2015, so about 7 years ago. Heather says, yes, so great. So glad that you're getting a lot out of it, Heather. He currently has 18 books. So that's 7 years and 18 books later while coaching for us. So that's 2 box sets. He has his books published in 6 languages, 10 books sold to international publishers so he can publish in a wider audience. Over 200,000 copies sold worldwide. And he's in the self-development and mindset niche. Now, the unique thing about Scott and what makes him such a valuable coach for us is that he has a really robust author ecosystem and a powerful book sales network. So remember when we talked about the book sales network up here, he has all of these working really well, and he has a really strong author ecosystem. So let's see how Scott did it. Let's break it down and show you plain and simple. If you go to Scott's Amazon author page, he has a number of different books available. And you can see by this image that they kind of all have a similar branding. You might see a multiple of these books and say, oh, that looks like Scott Allen. That would be because it is. I'm going to use his series, Empower Your Success, as an example here. So let's say somebody buys Scott's Empower Your Success book. Let's say multiple people do. 2 different avatars. Okay, that's what these pictures represent, is the 2 different types of people who are buying his book. One person, or rather, buys his book. So one person comes out of his book and says, you know what, I got so much out of this book, but I might need more. Through reading this book, I have learned that I actually need more help when it comes to my thoughts. I feel really good about other things in my life that I'm empowering my success. But in order to really be successful, it's very clear to me from this book that I need more work on my thoughts. So that person comes out of reading Scott's book and needs more, right? He wants more. So Scott has actually written a book called Empower Your Thoughts. So this is his series, but it's more of a collection using that book branch method. Another person, however, might read Scott's book, Empower Your Success, and be like, you know what, I think my thoughts are fine. I feel really great taking action and strategizing and performing in my success. Where I lack, and what has become clear to me based on reading this book, is that my gratitude is a little lacking. My attitude is very poor, and I could really benefit and be more successful if I work on my gratitude. For that reader, Scott has Empower Your Gratitude already ready and teed up for that reader. Now, if this book branch method didn't exist, if Scott didn't write those additional books, both of these avatars might come out of reading his book, Empower Your Success, and go to other authors in order to read and learn more, right? Because the thing is, readers, for the most part, and I will say pretty much any part, they want to read more by the same author. If somebody loved Empower Your Success, they don't even necessarily want to go to somebody else in order to try to learn more of what they need to learn. They want more of the same author. That's why I've read every Adam Grant book, every Malcolm Gladwell book, any book that those 2 authors write, I'm going to read. I don't even have to think about it. I would rather set something up in Amazon that says, oh, they launch a book, it automatically buys it. I wish that was a feature. Maybe in the future, but that's the idea we're going for here, is you're creating your author ecosystem to collect more people to your author platform, but also to sell more products, meaning books, to readers who are already there. So an additional way that this works is maybe we have that avatar, right? That second avatar who read Empower Your Success, and he said, this was so great, I just want the whole collection. I want to read all of them because I gained so much from this book. Scott did such a great job. And so that is how you can also get a higher payment, right? Higher income from a single reader, because box sets are more expensive, like I just touched on. Okay. So that is the first method to going full-time as a nonfiction author. Now, this is a very clear plan that to actually write the amount of books that attract the right types of people. But I want you guys to keep in mind that this is a plan. Once you have your first book and publish it successfully, you can move on to your second, publish it successfully. And successfully means having all of your information set up correctly on the Amazon page, submitting to the right categories and keywords so it shows up for the people, and ultimately just doing a really great job of marketing it as a whole. But as you can see, when I talked about Scott's, he did this 15 books in 7 years. So this is a commitment. I mean, if you want to do something full time, there is a timeline attached to that, especially with something like this, but the payoff is so worth it. Now let's get into lesson number 2. We have quite a few more fiction people in here than nonfiction, so I'm pretty excited to share this method with you guys. I worked with our fiction coach, Rami Vance here. He's authored over 11 of his own books and co-authored so many other ones. And so this is really our method of what we've uncovered creates raving fans that allows you to really continue selling books to your audience. I think fiction fans are some of the most voracious fans out there. I'm one of them. Again, there are certain authors that write any book and I'm going to buy it and I'm going to read it and I know I'm going to love it. V.E. Schwab is one of those authors. Erin Morgenstern is another one. Absolutely love her books. So fiction, there are 2 methods that you can actually use, and we're going to start with standalones and then we're going to go into book series. One of these is more effective than the other, so keep that in mind. Starting with standalone books. So standalone book is just one that's not a series. It's just a single novel. Story ends when you close and you close the book. I can word. Much better writer than a speaker. Just kidding. But this is how this method works. So let's use a romance novel for an example. We have a romance author in here. Heather, was that you? Yes, it was. All right. So this is how you can do this for a romance standalone book. What you can actually do to write and really come up with multiple ideas for romances. I think it's easy when you're coming up with romance books to say, oh, I have all these ideas, but when push comes to shove, you're like, oh, wait, that sounds like the same idea. Oh, wait, that sounds like the same idea. So this is a method that allows you to write very different books, but serve the same audience what they want. Because here's the thing when it comes to fiction people, most of them want more of the same thing. Whereas nonfiction people want something different and new each time they're learning. Fiction people want more of the same thing, right? It's like craving a pizza. But it's their favorite food, so they can't actually ever not be satisfied. They just want more of it. So what we're going to do for a standalone romance book is really any standalone genre, is we're going to pull out 3 different fiction elements. So these are only 3 of them. There are several different fiction elements, but we're going to focus on the 3 that we've identified at Self-Publishing School really creates powerful books that serves your same audience. So we're going to look at the setting, the trope, and the theme. And the trope, if you're unfamiliar with what a trope is, it's kind of like a common element when it comes to different types of books. So if you think about love triangles, that is a trope. If you think about enemies to lovers, that is a trope. These are very specific to romance. When it comes to like the orphan hero, that is a trope. Things that you see repeatedly that people really like. We want to hold on to those. Move my mouse out of the way for you guys. So what you're actually going to do is you're going to take your romance novel and you're going to write multiple books in a similar setting. So this is how the branch method works for a standalone novel. So let's say that you have a romance novel that's set in New York City. The next book you're going to write is going to be set in a big city, not New York. So what you're going to change is in the next book, the next standalone that you write, you're going to change the trope in the theme, but you're going to keep the setting the same. So again, New York City is a big city, but the next book can actually take place in, let's say, Tokyo, which would be a completely different book. And because you're changing the tropes and the themes and obviously the characters and all of those details, it's going to be a very, very different book. But what you're serving is the audience who loves books, romance books that take place in big city. They love the hustle and the bustle. They love that office environment. So you're going to write another book. Maybe the second book or third book rather is going to be set in Chicago. And then maybe you have one that is set in, I don't know, Orlando or whatever other big city that you can think of. You can actually do a worldwide, choose different locations, which would actually be pretty cool as well. And then the second thing that you can do is if you are writing a romance novel in New York City, let's make the trope enemies to lovers, since I already said that trope. So maybe your romance novel set in New York has enemies to lovers trope. What you're going to do next to write books that serve people who love the enemies to lovers trope. So now your reader is not the person who cares about the setting. They're the people who love that trope. They just want to read books about enemies to lovers, right? People who meet, they hate each other, and later they fall in love. So what you're going to do is you're going to write a second book that is going to be, you're going to change the setting and the theme. So the setting of this next book might take place in like the backwoods of Louisiana, but you have an enemies to lovers trope that your readers are going to love. And you can write another one that, again, you're changing the setting. So maybe this setting takes place on a ship going across the ocean, and you still have that enemies to lovers trope. So this is all about giving your audience more of what they love. So when you identify what your audience loved about a certain novel that you wrote, or maybe what you love to write, so think about it that way too, you can adjust those things. And so again, if we're gonna go down to theme, now you can write other books that have different themes. So when it comes to themes, these are a little bit more ambiguous. Whenever I think of themes, I think of kind of like, what is the overarching message of this book? So if there's a romance book where the theme is about enemies to lovers, or not enemies to lovers, the theme is about found family. Got enemies to lovers on the mind, you guys. The theme is about found family. Now you can write 3 books where that is the overarching theme. That is the lesson that your characters learn, is about found family. It's not about who you're born to. It's about the family that you meet along the way. What you're actually going to change then in those books are the settings and the tropes. And again, obviously the characters and the other stuff, but you're going to be very intentional about changing the setting to be somewhere else. And then you're going to change the trope, but the theme is always going to be the same. And so this is what that could look like in the end. Now, as standalone books, so these are not in series, these are standalone novels, really that you've written, technically 6 of them, although it looks like 4 each of them. 3, 3, 3, 9, math, doing some math. Now you can actually sell box sets. So the way that you can sell box sets of a standalone book isn't necessarily having a series, but you can have the Love in the Big City as a box set with a setting of all in big cities. Or you can have an enemies to lovers box set that is a standalone novels that are all enemies to lovers type of tropes. Or you can have, the same thing for your theme where it's found family, love with found family or something like that, selling it as a box set. So that is how this works as a standalone for fiction. And that's how you would build your author ecosystem if what you prefer to write is standalone. Now, there are a lot of people who love writing series and could write 10, 12, 15 books down a single series. We're going to get to that in a second. But if you're somebody where you just kind of want to write standalone books, especially for romance, or mystery or whatever those things are, you want to have new characters. You're really interested in that. I personally like that writing style for fiction. I really like coming up with standalone ideas versus series. This is a method that works for you. Now, how this works in action, as you can see, we have sci-fi standalones. Rami Vance, R.E. Vance is our fiction coach. And so he does this a little bit. He'll have standalone novels within his world where he does a mix actually. So, and you could do this as well. You can have a mix of standalone and series. So he does a little bit of both. And ultimately, we do recommend doing series just because we know that that works better. But this is a way that you can kind of take the series hack for standalone novels. Now let's get into fiction book series. I'm going to take a look at the chat really quick. We have some people coming in. We have fantasy fiction author here. I've got 1 standalone so far, though more ideas. Working on a series. Okay, that's great. Book 3 is in planning. That sounds great. Good for you. Congratulations. We've got questions about royalties. It honestly, Raymond, it completely depends. And we'll get into a little bit of the math as we get down here, but I've got a math breakdown a little bit as well. So fiction series. The great thing about fiction series is that Amazon loves them, which means if Amazon loves them, they are going to promote your books more. Why does Amazon love fiction series? This is why. Because when you get to the end of a fiction series on Kindle, especially for Kindle Unlimited, if you are not optimizing your Amazon books for Kindle Unlimited, you're making a big mistake. Because Kindle Unlimited, as soon as you finish the book, it automatically populates a page that allows you to click and buy the next book within 2 clicks. This increases your reader's read-through. So a read-through rate for Kindle Unlimited is what percentage of your books are people moving on to. And there's a pretty standard formula that we've discovered for this. It's about 80% of people who finish book 1 will move on to book 2. I think it's like 60% who read book 2 move on to book 3. And if you get people to read your third book, you're essentially almost at 100% rate for the rest of your series. I think I actually mixed that up. 60% from book 1 to book 2, 80% from book 2 to book 3. Basically, the more books in your series that a person reads guarantees a higher percentage that they'll read on to the next book. And so what does this look like when we think about how do we give our readers in a book series more of what they want, but keeping it interesting enough to have them move on to the next book? Because, right, we want them to get that next book immediately because Kindle Unlimited pays you per page read. That's where the majority of fiction author income comes from. So this is how that would work. So in the fiction book, you're going to take your fiction elements. So we're going to pull out the setting, trope, and theme, and we're going to use a fantasy trilogy. So Literature Bear, this is going to be very great for you since you are writing a fantasy fiction. We're going to take those same elements that we talked about in the standalones, and we're going to branch off of them a little bit differently. So first, let's say you have the first book in your fantasy trilogy set in an industrial setting. Maybe it's a little bit of a steampunk fantasy mixture, which would actually be really cool. Your trope is going to be the anti-hero. So, you know, the hero who doesn't want to be a hero, so they're kind of grumpy about it and don't actually want to do anything, but we love them anyway because they're kind of a teddy bear type of trope there. And the theme is going to be compassion is the way. So the theme, the lessons learned in this book are all going to center around having compassion and being a compassionate person. What you're going to do is you're going to shift those settings slightly, but still give people more of the same. So especially when it comes to fantasy, you can't change the setting as much, but you can create more, or rather you can change those elements because the characters and people are the same. So if you're writing book 2, you change the setting. Maybe now we're going to be going into more of an advanced industrial society. Maybe they discover an advanced industrial society in the second book. And that's kind of the whole theme and the conflict around it. You know, weapons they've never seen before, things they've never encountered. Maybe the trope is that opposites attract. So maybe our main character is coming up against people who are completely the opposite. Maybe this bubbly, outgoing, lovable person who's nice to everybody now is introduced up against that anti-hero type of person. And so maybe the theme of the second book is that people can change. So maybe you're following that along. Now in the third book, we're going to change those 3 things up again, because we are keeping majority of the same characters. So maybe now we're going back to a rural setting. Maybe they had to get away. Maybe now they're going backwards and they're actually running out of resources in this new setting. And the trope can be all about found family. So maybe to round out the series, all of these odds and ends and people coming together for these different books are actually now creating a family together. Those opposites that attracted are now forming a family. And maybe the theme is that love prevails. Maybe that's how the series ends, nice and warm and buttoned up, if you like that kind of thing. But that's really how you can create your fiction series in order to keep people interested. Because if I'm reading book 1 in an industrial setting and I'm hooked and I love the characters, and I learn that, oh, book 2, they're going to be going into this completely different environment where the weapons are advanced, the magic is different, and they have all these conflicts coming, I'm going to want to read that personally. I don't know about you guys. And same with the third book. If the setting, those main elements are changed slightly, it increases the intrigue. So the reader is like, oh, it's not just going to be the same thing over and over again with the same characters. I'm actually going to get something new. I'm going to get new world building. I'm going to see more of this world. That's what you want to create within your fiction series. And so you have those 3 books now in your series. And one thing that I want to talk about a little bit when it comes to creating your author ecosystem. Now, I talked a little bit when it came to Rami's example that he has spin-offs in some of his book series. Now, a spin-off is usually a standalone novel that is connected to a book series, but it's kind of on its own. So let's say you introduce a character in book 2, right? Maybe it's that bubbly, feel good, everybody loves character that the main character ends up hating, but then loving. But maybe they're so popular with your readers, with your fan base, that you're like, okay, I'm going to write a book about this person, or I'm going to take this book and spin the story off and take this intriguing character and I'm going to make them have their own story. And that's what a spin-off is. And that can help you, once again, create that author ecosystem where maybe people find your spin-off first, And that's another thing about a spinoff is it doesn't have to be connected to your series. They can read it before, after, it doesn't matter. And that's how they can find your book series. Now, this was the case with the author Brian Staveley. I actually found Skullsworn, his book first, which I highly recommend. It is a beautifully written book, beautifully written from really start to finish. I was obsessed with it. And I didn't actually know that, oh, this is a standalone book from a different series. Now it says book 4, but it technically is not connected to the others. It's actually in his series that it says book 4 so that it pops up on Kindle as the next book to read. But The Emperor's Blade, it's in that same world. So that's how a standalone works, spin-off within your book series, and how you can kind of continue to create books and come up with book ideas to expand your author ecosystem. So say a couple of these here are standalones, for one for this series, one for this series, and now these are the first, second, and third book that you're selling. And now you can sell box sets that include your spin-offs and the entire books in the series. And that is really how, as a fiction author, you're going to be able to sell the most books, because not only are you going to attract more readers this way because you have more books to attract readers, but you're going to keep them because you have more books to sell them. So this works, again, the same with or rather differently than the standalones, but fiction series are definitely where the income is when it comes to fiction books. So this is what this Raving Fans plan can look like in action. So PC James is somebody, he's a student of ours. He's somebody who implemented a lot of these steps. And actually, even if I look up his Amazon profile, I think his first book is even more than that. This picture is a little bit outdated. So he's 5 of 9. You can see right here that he's got that. He's got significant book reviews of 5 of 9. Yeah, so he now has over 500 reviews on his first book in the series, 177 on the second. As you can see, he's kind of thriving. He's selling a lot of books, and he has a large number of books to sell. So this is a 9-book series. So he can actually sell 9 books to a single reader and therefore make the additional income based on that. This is also the case with Barbara Hartzler. She is another one of our fiction coaches where she did this. Now she has 2 series in the same world with different characters. So that's another option where you can create a world in fiction that is big enough to have one series here and an entirely different series following a different kind of main character. So she's got the single books, and then she has the book box set as well. And again, this is a romance. This is a, what is it, paranormal fantasy romance as well. This author is just crushing it. I mean, her first book has, in this screenshot, 546 reviews. Let's take a look at Crowley, and let's see how her book is doing now. Yeah, 642 reviews, and she also has 9 books in her series that she's able to sell, review really well. You can tell this author is definitely selling multiple books. So this is really how these authors have done it, is taken that kind of same idea and broken it down that way throughout an entire series. Now, it doesn't include the marketing they're doing and the ways that they're optimizing their newsletter and their community in order to sell more books. But this is the same idea of getting it on Kindle Unlimited and allowing people to read through. So this is how the projected earnings break down. So Raymond, you asked what is the average monthly romance author's royalty? That is entirely going to depend on what you put into marketing it, how good your books are, and kind of where you can find the fan base. But I'm going to break down what the income can look like that way. So let's just say you have one book that sells for $10 a day, or $10, and you sell 3 books a day at a 70% royalty rate. I think that's it for ebooks specifically, not necessarily Kindle Unlimited. This is what you'll make in 1 year. $7,000, 3 books a day. That's not a substantial amount. It's not a full-time income. Now, if we take 3 books, so you have 3 books, sells for $10 each, that's $30. Sales per day is 3, and your royalty rate is 70%. Now you're already up to about $45,000 a year, which is a healthy full-time income in most parts of at least the United States, right? So really, you can reverse engineer the math. This is kind of what it breaks down to. We've got this calculator available on our website if you're curious. And that's just with 3 sales per day, only ebooks, right? So that's what this looks like. Now, if we take 5 books, so you have a 5-book series, you sell, so $50, $10 each, you sell 3 per day at a 70% royalty rate. Now you're up to 150,000. So as you can see, it's very easy to do the math of more books equals more money. And that's really how it breaks down. Now, this calculator was developed by our fiction author based on what he knows and has seen as well. But you can alter how many books sold per day. If that number goes up, obviously your income goes up. Now, it's not saying that you're going to sell the equal number of book 3 as book 1, but I wanted to give you guys an idea of how the math can actually shake out with a very, attainable goal of selling 3 books a day. So that is how fiction authors can create a full-time income. Does that make sense for you guys? Heather has a question. Do you recommend being close to published book 2 before launching on Kindle to maximize the branching and or read through? So yeah, there's a little bit of secret. One of the methods that we use here at Self-Publishing School for our students is called the rapid release. So you write 3 books before you even launch the first one so that you can launch all 3 in the same month. So you kind of have a maximum read through, maximum reach, because what happens when people start getting and reading book 1, you capitalize on that launch. Those buyers now have book 2 available and book 3 available kind of right away. Because one thing that you'll notice in the fiction community, like I said, the fans are a little bit crazy, is they want that book now. If they have to wait a year to get the second book, you're going to lose people reading through. So unless you have a really big platform to sell a book to readers 2 years later or a year later, it's going to be much more difficult. So that's why we teach our authors kind of the specific strategy to do that. So yeah, drop any more questions you have for fiction people, and I'll loop back around after this lesson and answer them. But this next lesson is going to be the business builder's blueprint. So there are some tips in here for fiction authors. So I don't want you to think that this is all that you need in order to for this presentation. This applies to fiction people in a little bit of a different way, so I'll make those differences. So first, this is all about how you can start and grow a business with a lead generating book. And again, I'll teach you how fiction applies to this in a second. So the first thing that you have to know as a nonfiction author when it comes to wanting to build a business with your book is that your book is going to solve a problem. It's going to be a solution-based book. So you have your nonfiction book. Here are just a couple problems or examples of solving a problem. How to start a music career, how to land a dream job, how to naturally conceive, how to eat healthier, how to declutter your home. I think you guys get the idea of the how-tos, and you can name it differently, but the how-tos are going to be teaching somebody something, solving a problem, because normally the people who are seeking the solutions for those things want it solved further than information. So we'll talk about that next. So this is how you use your book as a lead generation. So if you don't know what leads are, it's basically when somebody signs up to an email list, we call that a lead. That is contact information that we now have about somebody where we can market to them further. So it's a lead, it's a business lead for income. So people read your nonfiction book, they download your lead magnet, which I'll show you examples of in a second, also called a reader magnet, if some of you have heard of it under that term, where it's a free resource in exchange for a name and an email address. And these are the collection of the people who you can solve a problem for, okay? So what this looks like, the lead magnet, when you create this, we started making these for our authors just because they are so important. So this is Bill Soroka. He's a student, was a student of ours rather years ago. And his lead magnet is just, what has he got? A number of free resources. So he's got a whole page where he's like, I'm going to give you some free stuff. And so that's a link that all you really even need. People don't even need to buy your book essentially to become a lead on your email list this way. If they click on the look inside feature on Amazon, they can actually click on the link from your book in order to sign up. So if we just go to Sign and Thrive, I'm also a visual person, so that's why I like doing the examples here. Oh, #1 bestseller still. That's great. If I click look inside, I can actually scroll down. It's scroll down because I've already been on this page so much. And click. Oh, his link is not clickable. Oh, there we go. I'll have to let him know this link's not clicking. But essentially, you can click and go to his website and sign up for your free stuff there as well. So that's just how a lead magnet works. Here's another example of Skip the Flip by one of our students where he's giving away his free audiobook. So instead of having people buy the audiobook, he's saying, hey, sign up, put your info in here, and I will actually just give you a free copy. But really, it's all about being a problem solver beyond the book. So that's really the idea when it comes to growing a business, is not only are you going to give them the information, but you're going to go a step further and help them implement the process of solving their problem. That's the idea with growing a business based on your book. So you're going to develop products and services, or services, not, you don't have to do both, that help people solve a problem even more. So in the case of Fiction People, instead of doing services, what you can actually sell are different products. So that's the box set, that's the audiobook. And additionally, that can be merchandise. If you have a fan base that absolutely loves your stuff or has a certain phrase that they keep quoting from a character, put it on a t-shirt and sell it because they'll buy it. Fiction fans love that stuff. So that's how you can take a fiction book and create a product off of it and get a little bit creative. Maybe you have a membership service where raving fans can become a member of your Patreon and they get insider information. Maybe they can help you plot your next book, where you give them a poll of different options and your main character is going to jump off a cliff or jump from a high tree or whatever it is, and allow them to be involved. But those are a couple ideas for Fiction People as well, to create kind of more of a business based on the book. But as for nonfiction goes, these are the different opportunities for creating an income or creating products and services. You can have a course, you can have a consulting business, you can have other kinds of services. So whether that would be, I don't know, maybe you wrote a book about how to declutter your home and you're actually going to go visit people's houses and declutter for them. Products would look like same idea. If you're declutter your home, maybe your products are organizers, cabinet organizers, refrigerator organizers, closet organizers, and you can sell products that way. And then perhaps for the coaching, or you could also do coaching. So self-publishing school is a good mix of this. If you think about Chandler's book Published, right, that's teaching people how to go from blank page to 10,000 copies sold. And that's the book that we use to generate leads to our course and coaching based and now services based business. So you can combine some of these as well, because we've got all three of those, as well as some products, including the book. But the idea is that we're going to go through the book funnel strategy here. So you're going to go from awareness, which is people getting your book. Then you're going to go down to the evaluation, which is people are now on your email list because they signed up for your lead magnet. And the evaluation is when you're going to email them. So you're going to create an email campaign, which is a little bit more advanced that I'm not going to get too much into. And then we're going to go through conversion. So the conversion is when they take action on an email and they decide to work with you, they decide to sign up, that sort of thing. And just like a truth bomb, a fact that is hard to get around is not every reader will become a customer. So this is not a guarantee that every single person who reads your book is now going to become a customer. Some people are only going to be customers of your book, and that is perfectly fine. You're only meant to serve kind of a smaller portion of that audience anyways at a higher ticket. So what this can actually look like is the ones who do, I'll show you what it looks like in a second, but the ones who do buy from you will likely continue buying more from you if you actually help them. So if somebody buys one course of yours from your book and you have many courses, they're likely to continue to buy the courses if they have a good experience with your course in the first place. So this is what the Business Builder's Blueprint can look like in action. So this is what it looks like implemented. So David McKay is a photographer. So he had a book where he wrote about photography. In exactly 1 year, he sold $10,000 worth of book royalty. So he made $10,000 from book sales, but he made over $45,000 in business directly from his book. So only from his book, not the other business that he had outside of just the book. And it's about 30 to 40 leads per week. So 30 to 40 people per week are signing up to his email list, where now he owns their contact information and he can talk to them, market to them, and potentially sell his photography services on that end. Nancy Hillis is another great one. She's an artist and psychiatrist. So she wrote The Artist's Journey, reviewed really well, really about how to improve yourself through your art. and sold over 10,000 copies in 2 years, made over $50,000 in book sales, and over $100,000 earned in overall business. So her business is based on courses and speaking engagements. Mike Acker is a speaking expert. He has an Amazon bestseller. I'm not sure if it's still a bestseller, but it was at the time. Left his corporate job, actually quit, launched a coaching and consulting business where now he gets to teach other people the skill set that he has, and made $32,000 the first year only in his business. So him quitting his corporate job came after that number. So he made that money and then quit and was able to pour more into growing his business. And he's written multiple books since. So he's only continuing to expand not only his business, but his book author ecosystem as well. So if we take a look at the projected earnings breakdown of all of this and what this can look like. So we're going to take kind of the same idea as before. So if you have one book, it sells for $10 a day. The sales, you have five sales per day. There we go. Maybe you're marketing it a little bit more than the other examples. And you have 3 leads per day. Your yearly book sales may be, $7,600, but your new leads are over 1,000. And that's very, very valuable. So let's say based on those numbers, you have a $2,000 product or service. So this speaking fee is more in line with courses or consulting, something that is more higher ticket. So people pay $2,000 in exchange for this stuff. The example is you may have, $7,000 from book sales, but if you have 100 new customers, right? If that's 10% of that 1,000, buy your service, product or services, that's $200,000 and over $200,000 in yearly earnings coming in for your business. So that's a little bit about how this math breaks down when it comes to having a product or service based on your book. And really your author earnings will only increase exponentially once you start thinking about going beyond the book when it comes to all of your books, beyond one book. So whether it is a standalone, writing multiple books and having box sets, whether it's your fiction series, writing a series, writing spinoffs, writing another series in the same world, giving those readers more of what they want, or whether it's through a business where you're not just writing one book, but you're actually creating services or products based off of your book. So what you learned today, and I actually have a little bit more here for you guys, and stay until the end so you can learn how you can actually get these slides if you want them. What you really learned today is about book branch method. I showed you how to create potential of 25 books and over 30 products with those box sets in your author ecosystem. Lesson number 2, we went through the Raving Fans Plan and how to hook readers with an irresistible fiction box set that sells like crazy. And then lesson number 3, we talked about the business builder's blueprint, really how to build a business of products and services off of your book. So what happens when you utilize these tips to make a full-time living using your book? Well, you end up becoming a bestseller for essentially always. There hasn't really been a time I've looked up Skip the Flip where it wasn't a bestseller, which let's just take a look for the sake of visual learners. Yep, it is still a bestseller. And what happens is he published it in 2020. It is still a bestseller to this day. If I look in that category, real estate law, we're up against some bigger names as well. There was one category where he was up against Give and Grow Rich, which is crazy. But not only that, this author took his book and he turned it into a service. So not only does it teach people real estate, but he actually turned it into a recurring revenue model. So he created a tool that allows people to track their real estate investments and really their portfolio. So the number of properties they own and how much, that is on a sliding scale. So the more properties people have, the more successful they are with his methods in his book, the more money they're going to end up paying him through his service. This also looks like Jennifer Hayes Yates. She's a bestseller in a Christian topic, and she's written several books since. So she's more of that career nonfiction that we talked about, creating branches off of this main book to cover different topics. And we also have the fiction authors where, Leona Crowley is selling tons of books, getting really great ratings. The same with PC James. When you apply these methods, they do work. You apply them over time, you can create that full-time income. And by the way, PC James is over 70 years old, and he did not publish his first book until he was after 70. And so he is now living his lifelong dream at his ripe old age, not to put it crudely, but that is what he is doing now because he followed our methods. And not only that, but these books are reviewed well throughout the different books. So you can make a full-time living from books, but you need to build your author ecosystem using a proven system that works, right? So your author ecosystem is only going to work if you plan and you put those steps in and you know what's going to work for it with the system that works, like I just taught you. And so that's why we've actually created the Full-Time Author Challenge. Now, if you guys have not heard of this Full-Time Author Challenge just yet, we are doing this starting tomorrow. Yes, tomorrow through Sunday, we are hosting a challenge to help you take these steps a little bit further and teach you how to go beyond the book with more detail. So what you're going to learn during this challenge, we're going to break down your story's value. So we're going to go through why it's important to you. We're going to set some goals and do some vision casting for what it will look like to actually go full time with your books and the things that you need to make that happen outside of just this presentation. I'm going to come back and I'm going to teach you myself, why book marketing is so hard. You know, I've been marketing for 7 years. So for me, it's not hard at all anymore, but it is a skill that is learned. And so I'm going to teach you how you can market your book. So not only will your first book sell well, but your second and your third. And then also what a full-time author income actually looks like. So we're going to sit down with 2 full-time authors, Scott Allen, like I showed you, and Rami Vance are going to come in, and we're going to be able to actually sit down with them and ask them real questions. What are their habits like? You know, how did they get started? How did they come up with these methods? And that's how you can go. Now, there's a pinned comment here in the chat that you can click on to sign up for this Full-Time Author Challenge. It starts again tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So if you're in Eastern time, or not in Eastern time, do the math backwards. And that's what we'll be starting tomorrow through Sunday. Now, the cost of this is completely free. We're doing this for free. It's hosted in a Facebook group with other authors who are all looking to go full-time with their books. So not only will you be able to get this content and information for free, but you will also be able to connect and network with other authors so you can learn and maybe gain some accountability buddies. Because I know that being an author can be a little bit lonely because not a lot of people will understand you in your personal life. They just know that you're the weirdo deciding to write a book. So that will be great for you to connect with other people. So again, this starts tomorrow at 12 p.m. Eastern time. We dropped the link there in the chat. You can click on that, fill in the form in order to register, and you will get an email with a link to the Facebook group so that you can join and come hang out with us this week as we teach you how to go full-time with your books. Now, I know this is a little bit soon for notice for some of you, starting tomorrow through Sunday in the middle of the day. That could be a bit much. So I do have another recommendation. If you really are dedicated to going full-time with your books, and you're good with being dedicated for a couple of years, really building this lifestyle, when you look back after 2 years, and you are now a full-time author, it will be so worth it. That is the number one thing we hear from our authors is, it does take time to build up this kind of lifestyle, but it really is a lifestyle that you're building. It's not just a career. It's not just a full-time job. It's your lifestyle that you get to create, that you get to change by doing this. So I also would recommend signing up and joining Author Advantage Live this year. Now, this is our 3-day event that we have once a year, 3 full days. I'm talking 8 a.m. To 6 p.m. where we're giving you the best information for this, for 2022, for this time period, for how to actually go full-time with your book. We're going to teach you not only these methods, we're going to break them down further. So fiction authors, we're going to get very detailed about read through, about how to craft your characters that people get addicted to, all those sorts of things. And these are just a couple of sneak peeks about what this looked like last year. So this is really, really cool. It will be virtual, as you can see, so we can have people join from all over the world. So you can connect with authors from all over the world, writing different things from you and writing things that you're writing, so you can kind of connect. So this is Aaron and Sean hanging out at Author Advantage Live. This is Chandler interviewing John Maxwell, who we got to speak last year and talk all about his experience with books and advice that he would give people at Author Advantage Live. Rachel and Sean giving out awards to our audience. This is me talking about the Book Sales Network. And actually last year at Author Advantage Live is where I kind of unveiled this book branch method. So people at Author Advantage Live always get the newest up-to-date information first. So if you want to be in on the updated information when it comes to writing and marketing your book, launching, as well as monetizing, so creating multiple income streams based on your book, and then marketing it. Again, I will be there teaching and breaking down this book sales network in way more detail for you at Author Advantage Live. So these are some of the talks from day one. There is a link in the chat there that you can click and go to the page in order to buy your ticket and read a little bit more about what we're doing. But day one is all about making it. So it's about writing a high quality book. What does it need? How do you actually write a book that solves a problem that people love, that people rate 5 stars, you know? And day number 2 is all about monetizing it. So what are the different income streams that you can create? How do you build that business? As a fiction author, how can you differentiate your income stream so it's not just book sales, but maybe it's a membership page on Patreon, maybe it's selling merchandise. And we're gonna talk quite a bit about selling your offer as well. And then day number 3 is all about marketing it, which is oftentimes one of the top things people need assistance with when it comes to their books, is marketing it. So I've developed all of this content here for our event, along with some of our amazing speakers. I've kind of compiled it, and they're creating their own talks. We have a number of different speakers there. We have a couple incredible keynote speakers that will be there as well. You don't want to miss. We'll have that announcement coming very soon. But in order to get your tickets, it is $77 right now for our general admission tickets. Now, prices go up in just a few days. On July 18th, they'll be going up again, and they'll only continue to go up. So you can go to authoradvantagelive.com or click the link here in the chat in order to get your ticket. And you can also go VIP. So you can actually get some tailored coaching sessions from Chandler and our speaking roster as well, including recordings of the entire event. So if you're not able to make those 3 days, but you want to have all of the recordings and keep them forever, or even if you can make it and you want to stay, go ahead and grab that VIP ticket. It's definitely going to be worth it. You get a free bring a friend ticket, you get a free or you get early bird bonuses, you get a free general admission to Author Advantage Live next year. So you don't have to pay to join for next year's event. And again, VIP only gets kind of some meet and greets with each other and a little bit more of an exclusive access to Author Advantage Live. But again, prices are going to go up on July 18th. So grab yours for $77. This is, we just have not ever sold this for this cheaply. Now this is the first price increase already happened. And so it's at $77 for 3 days of the industry leading information on what it takes to write, market, and monetize your platform as a self-published author. So go ahead and click on those links. I've had a great time hanging out with you guys today. Drop a comment on what your biggest takeaway was from this live presentation and which method you're going to use. So are you going to use that Raving Fans Plan, or the book branch method, the Raving Fans Plan, or the Business Builder's Blueprint? Drop in the comment which you are, what you're going to be utilizing. And I hope to see you guys during the challenge. I will be there every day in the comments, and I will also be at Author Advantage Live. Love getting FaceTime with you guys. So loved hanging out. I'm excited to be here, and I will see you guys at Author